This podcast is not rated. Listener discretion advised. Mission to City.
So this is what when Welles was like describing like how he was going to like do this like technique for this film, and I can't really remember where it exactly was he was going to do it, but this is like what he set out as the scene here. The scene would start, it'd be fade out, dark screen, and then Welles' voice, ladies and gentlemen, this is Orson Welles. Don't worry. There's just nothing for you to look at for a while. You can close your eyes if you want to, but please open them when I tell you to. First of all, I'm going to divide this audience into two parts. You and everybody else in the theater. Now, open your eyes. And then interior of a bird cage, shooting from inside the bird cage as it would appear to a bird inside the cage looking out. The cage fills the entire screen. Beyond the bars can be seen the chin and mouth of Welles, tremendously magnified. Welles' voice then continues.
He knows he has a big chin. He does. Okay. That's
good. I know. The big hole in the middle there is my mouth. You play the part of a canary. I'm asking you to sing and you refuse. That's the plot. I offer you an olive. A couple of gargantuan...
What was it?
Olive. Olive. You know, have 10 and you'll
have
like
10. You might like it.
You'll like it, yeah.
Even if you're a bird, you might like it.
A couple of gargantuan fingers appear from below the cage and thrust an enormous olive towards the camera through the bars of a cage. And Welles' voices continue. You don't want an olive. This enrages me. Welles' chin moves down and his nose and eyes are revealed. He is scowling fiercely. Here is a bird's-eye view of me being enraged.
This is an art house movie, is what this is.
Right. Now the muzzle of a pistol is stuck between the bars of a cage. It looks like a Big Bertha. Welles' voices continues. That's the way a gun looks to a canary, and I give you to the count of 3 to sing. So I think Welles loved this idea of like manipulating the audience, like being a magician, you know.
Wait, that's trying to get everyone in the audience to start singing, though? I wouldn't like that theater experience
No. I don't think
all.
he's actually singing. He's just saying that he...
No, he's trying to get the audience to sing. He's like,
not
I'm talking
literally
to you.
sing. He's just like saying that he can make them perform by manipulating the images on the screen. He's just alluding to how like he could shock them or amaze them or whatever, and he could like control them. And he's having fun with that idea, I think.
Okay.
Orson Welles likes to control people. Got it? Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That seemed like an art house short that he could have made in college or something.
Right. It would have been fun to see. I think the idea, it gets back to this idea of like to some extent, Welles, at least early on, really liked this idea of being very direct with the audience and not trying to pretend that they were like they would lose themselves in the movie and just be involved with the characters or whatever, but that he wanted to like show them that they were part of a movie and that the movie was manipulating them, and he wanted to be aware of that manipulation.
I wasn't aware of the manipulation in this though, and we have time on our side. We should be able to see those types of tricks or that type of intent more easily now because we watched way more stuff than people did back then. Right. And I still don't see it. So like,
yeah, I don't know. And again, the book goes on that like in terms of distinguishing what Hollywood was doing then, he says that like Hollywood cinema was basically a star medium. It was designed to highlight faces and the words, the actors, right? And Welles tried to introduce a sense of visual conflict and directorial presence. And this, I think, is similar to why people value Hitchcock. And where we see these films and we see like, God, the people are so wooden and I don't care about the people at all. But the people that value these films of these auteurs like Welles or Hitchcock, like, look at what they did. Look at the scene construction and all of that. And I think that's the idea, you know, that there's this sense of like, not emphasizing these stupid actors so much or the stupid story, but the scene composition and everything.
We're going to have stupid actors and we're going to have a stupid story, right. But we're going to zoom out a little bit. The camera's going to be a little bit further back than it usually is. Is that basically what we're talking about here, John?
Yep.
That sounds like. Does this make you like Hitchcock more or the same? It's definitely not less.
I think if I could read a book more that's similar to this about Hitchcock that deconstructs the scenes.
Somebody point us in the direction of a good book.
Right, exactly. No, you said it yourself, Denny. Like you're annoyed that people talk about how great Hitchcock is, but nobody really tries to go into detail about why. And I feel like this book does a pretty good job of deconstructing the scenes in Citizen Kane and his other movies. And
I didn't read a book, and I totally agree that even the commentary and the stuff I read, it is able. Like I I don't know the difference between why Hitchcock doesn't have it and why a lot of other directors do. Like the amount of detail I want of actually like the craft going on behind it is here for this movie, which is good, you know?
Yeah.
Which is better than a Hitchcock, I think.
Yeah.
It's easier to appreciate the craft of this one than it is the craft of a Hitchcock because there are people that understand why it's good and why it broke ground and stuff.
Right. I agree. I still feel like Hitchcock was more, I don't know. Hitchcock was really more about self-promoter and shooting action films, shooting Bond films or thrillers. And that was where, that's what he was doing. And there's anything wrong with that, but it doesn't make them like the most wonderful pieces of art ever. So, yeah. And so what the author continues just describing like the difference between Kane and the standard film at the time. It was that the editing, it wasn't about the unusual editing style. It was more about the size and relative perspective of the shots that Welles put on the screen, plus the tendency to animate the space around the actors. He kept the camera at a distance and used wide-angle lenses to increase the playing area so that he can draw out the individual shots and fill them with detail. And that was different at the time, especially, that he would have these wide-angle shots. And it wasn't just about an individual character speaking or two people speaking to each other. Like even there's the scene where Leland and his other friend are sitting there talking, and there's this whole dance routine going on behind them. Like that is unusual for the time, where you would have this whole other thing happening while they're having a really important conversation about the film.
Why would you have all these extras on set when all you need is a 2-shot? That's all you need is a 2-shot.
Exactly, right? Yeah. So in other words, his again, quoting from the book, his work ran somewhat against the grain of classic studio movies, which encouraged the audience to forget technique and identify with the players. Welles wanted them to see the scenery and see the shot and see the whole thing that was going on, as well as the technique. He didn't want to hide the technique, according to this book and this author. And that might lead us to feel a little bit like less identified with the people in the movie, which is, I think, similar to what Hitchcock does too, where we walk away from a Hitchcock film feeling like, I don't give a shit about these people because it's like wooden, I don't even care. And I don't think Hitchcock gives a shit about these people because he's more interested in like the technique and the scenery and the way the shot is composed. But you can sort of start seeing, as a director, you might really appreciate that. Or as somebody who might want to make movies, you could see these films and really appreciate the composition of the shots. Whereas us, as somebody watching a film, we see them and we're like, I don't give a shit about this person. So why am I sitting here wasting my time watching something about somebody I don't care about? Because we
like,
tend to think,
like as a user or person watching, it's like,
right,
I'm not a director, so I don't really care about. I care about the story, right?
Exactly. Or even if you are a director, why would you watch this movie and say, hey, this movie bombed or was misunderstood and still is, and a lot of people don't like, I don't understand the current popular opinion on this movie. I don't think people actually enjoy this movie. They just say it to seem smart. Yeah. That's what I think. But didn't like it back then. It bombed in the theater. Why would you take this as a template on how to be a successful director? It's not a good template for that at all. Right. Like if you're going to, there's a lot of aspects of this movie about a hateable character or about a nonlinear timeline or about like any other part of this movie, interesting shots and things like that, where there have been successful movies like Pulp Fiction or There Will Be Blood or anything where it has a part of this movie which probably was influenced from this movie. That would be a better template to learn from because they learned from it and they did it better and they were successful.
You're right.
I see what you're saying. Linearly, it would make sense to learn from later movies, right?
Yeah. You're right. I mean,
but everyone studies Lumiere for a reason, right? Like you got to learn how the foreground, middle ground, background goes, and then the angles, like fundamentals.
You got to learn the fundamentals before you can start breaking the rules.
That's right. And so maybe it's good as a film student or somebody who's going to make film. It's good to see this in its infancy and its like bareness, right? Where it's separated from good character. Like There Will Be Blood is a good contrast because, and maybe that's partially because of Daniel Day-Lewis as well, but you watch that film and you're fascinated by the guy. You may hate him, but you're fascinated by him throughout the whole film. And that's really impressive. Or No Country for Old Men is another good one where we're fascinated by the characters, even the bad guy.
Well, it seems like over the years, characters have taken the real.
Yeah,
that's the part. The
But you don't have to like choose
framing
one
and
or
stuff
the other.
Right, but back then the framing and the lighting, that was all new. Now that's all like understood. So we're able to just like
so now we can like go back and do both. You can have insanely
the first year lighting guy on
shots.
set's gonna know all the tricks that this movie had. So why watch this movie and why is it still on
I'm with
on the
you,
list?
Danny.
Yeah.
Because people are too afraid to go against the Hollywood standard.
No, 100%. This movie has solidified itself in a slot. Like, how is the best movie of all time the same from 62 to 2002 and then also the second best in 2012? Like, that's way too long of a period of time. There have been better movies since then. People learn.
Agreed.
I don't necessarily like the idea that like calling this the best movie of all time makes no sense. I think what makes sense is calling this movie influential.
Yes.
I can't say it. I'm tired. So one thing is like Hitchcock did not like deep focus. There's some parallels between Hitchcock and Welles.
Did he not?
But apparently Hitchcock, whose films have parallels with Welles, whose images is always lucid and orderly. Let me just quote from the book here. So Hitchcock, whose films have several parallels with Welles' own, but whose imagery is always lucid and orderly. Welles is a little bit more chaotic and more dreamlike.
Orderly.
Loosely and orderly. That's what
Lucidly.
I heard.
Yeah, anyway. Interestingly, Hitchcock once told students at an American Film Institute that he disliked deep focus compositions as a rule and that he thought the wide angle lens caused too much exaggeration. So there's a distinguishing feature between Hitchcock and Welles. So I'm going to repeat the authorship question here because I really liked how the author of this book worded it. So he says, quote, Citizen Kane is the product of an individual artist and a company of his associates working at a particular movie studio at a particular historical moment. The fact ought to be self-evident, but one needs to state it because the question of the film's authorship has become the oldest, worst-tempered, and most confused argument in movie history. So I just like how the author is like just annoyed by this and expressing it.
What was his point there? It sounded like he just stated a bunch of facts and then...
Well, I think he just said like what I liked is how he also said like when you think of the movie, you think about it in its time with the people who made it in the condition it was made, and that's also important.
You can say that about literally any movie.
You can, but people just take it. They forget all of that and they start quibbling over different things, and it gets really annoying. So
especially when a movie
just sort of like how he did that. Yeah. So, one bit of trivia, Denny. Did you know that the second sled given by Thatcher to Kane had a name as well?
The snow chair.
There was...
Sorry. The second snow chair given to Kane by Thatcher had a name. That snow chair had a name.
Wait, he had two sleds in this movie?
He had two sleds. Don't you remember where Thatcher gives him a sled and the boy rejects it?
No, I thought, oh God, this is, I thought he was just trying to hand the kid his own sled.
It was a new sled, and if you freeze frame, you can see the sled itself, which who named sleds, but maybe sleds were really important. What you named your snow chair was really important.
That's right.
Which is really weird that you would name your sled, but whatever, maybe back then that was different. But this sled given by Thatcher was named Crusader, and you can see it if you like freeze frame the film.
Which I will never do, but thanks for that, John.
Yeah, well, good to know.
See, so that's part of the problem, John. I'm glad you know that. That's part of the movie. In other movies, you can have the exact same scene constructed in a way where it's totally understandable on what's going on there. That is not clear because the movie is not constructed in an easy to understand way. And you'll have movie critics talking about how it's a movie that makes you think, it makes you need to pay attention, but I was fucking paying attention. And I've seen thousands of movies, and I'm not an idiot. And
you're excused, Denny. You're excused.
I don't think any of this stuff explains why this movie is not good.
I know. The News on the March discussion was shot in an actual RKO screening room. So when you have like the smoky room where they're like arguing about what Rosebud means initially, that was an actual RKO screening room, that's kind of cool.
Do you know when they filmed that?
When?
That was,
I don't know
when. So that was the first couple of weeks of shoot they shot in there.
Oh, really?
And so back in the day, I think this might still happen, but there were studio spies and there were scouts that would go on sets during movie production things to make sure people were on time. They were shooting it within the guidelines of the studio, that they weren't going off script, all this stuff. They were just like super, like it's pretty, I think it's probably still pretty normal. They'd actually have spies and stuff, but that was shot at the very beginning of production in that location you said, but they were saying they were doing rehearsals. so they wouldn't be bothered because the
wow.
lighting design in that scene. TC, this is the scene that's just total. It's like the first real shots of the movie where it's like,
I really like the lighting in it. I like that.
Smoky room.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
It's totally against any of the rules any of the studios had. You didn't see any of the actors' faces, which is a complete no. Like, you can't do that in studio movies.
I thought that was a great scene, though. I liked it. Yeah.
It was not bad. That scene was not bad.
Not bad.
It was not bad. Yeah. The lighting was cool. It lasted too long.
That was my lighting reference, was from that scene.
Yeah. It was cool when the guy was standing in front of the window shadow and moving his arms, and you could see all the beams of lights just like dancing and stuff. It looked good.
Right.
It looked good.
It did. Looked smoky.
Yeah.
It did. That stuff happens all the time now, but if that was original then and against the rules, thank you for bringing that to the lexicon of movies. Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Yeah.
But sorry, go on, John.
Cool.
Just wanted to add that in there while you're talking about it.
So, did you know what the original title of the film was?
An American?
That's right, American. Just
This
American.
Oh, it's just American.
I think it was just American.
Don't buy a ticket, thank you.
Stay home.
There is some assumption that
TV's not so bad. Oh wait, TV doesn't exist yet.
So there's some assumption that Leibowitz was gay. In fact, Mankiewicz and Welles were prohibited from showing a scene in a bordello where Kane unsuccessfully tries to interest Leland in a woman.
I thought the bordello scene was banned because you're not allowed to show bordellos in movies. That's what I read.
I think it was more about how they were. Well, that may have been why it was not. They weren't allowed to show it, but it was part of Leland's character. Was that there was some sexual tension between Leland and Welles?
I mean, that was still a Leland-based scene for the most part, where they transferred it to.
Yeah.
But from what I heard from Ebert, at least, was that was changed to just a bar with a giant. Apparently, there's just like a giant area next to this table, that could allow a bunch of dancers and a band to come in. Cool room. This is part of my trivia too, John. Come on now, give me something.
Yeah,
give me something.
No, it's good. It's good. You got it, man. You got it. There's a fair amount of work
just
in the
to give
book.
the audience a perspective on TC. He couldn't be more uninterested than he is.
Right, yeah.
He's pushing the microphone away from his face. He's taking his hat off, shaking his head.
I'm just
looking
hanging
out the window.
I'm an audience member now.
Your eyes
That's it.
are open,
Yeah.
dude. It's good. It's
I'm
good.
barely participating at this point because I hate this movie so much.
I'm running towards the end of my deep dive here, so this was a long one. But again, I do appreciate this book. Again, The Magic of Orson Welles. If you're interested in Orson Welles,
with the book.
Well, it was good. I mean, I really appreciate the writing, and
we're a movie podcast, but this is okay. We've already talked about it about 4 times.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
I've tried at various times. I've tried to find film critiques about different movies that we watched, and I've just hated them, and I've abandoned them and just go read the script or whatever as part of my deep dive. So I really appreciated sort of the just accessibility of this book and the way it references other works as well. That made it so I was very happy to read it as opposed to just hitting the eject button and going and reading the script or whatever, which is what I sometimes have to do because I can't find something that's accessible to me. So anyway, so I'm almost done here. Let's see.
It makes me happy. I mean, this movie was my least. No spoilers here. This is going to be in my bottom 3 easily.
Oh wow!
But I'm glad that you got something out of it because I didn't.
Yeah. So some people think that this movie's really about William Randolph Hearst, but there's a fair argument that this movie, in terms of the character of Kane, that it's really more about Welles. That Kane, again, to quote from the book, it often seems to be very much about Orson Welles himself. It was Welles, after all, who is known as the infant terrible, and this may account for Kane's emphasis on infantile rage. It was Welles, not Hearst, who was raised by a guardian, and the guardian's name has been given to the character in the film. It was Welles who made a famous comment comparing the movies to his own personal electric train set, almost like Kane remarking that it would be fun to run a newspaper. So there was a lot of similarities between the character of Kane and Welles, actually. And so,
but not as many as William Randolph Hearst. It was written about him because the screenwriter Mankiewicz knew Hearst. He hung out with him a lot and they had a falling out. And the car accident he got into where he was in the hospital for was from a party from Hearst's house. Hearst was also famously against drinking, but everybody in Hollywood drank at the time. So there was one there was a bunch of stories it's a lot of the backstory on these people is interesting if you care about famous, crazy people in Hollywood back in this period of time. But he used to have he would have big lawn parties. So this the picnic they had in this movie was based on one of his parties where he would invite all these famous people. So Hertz this real guy wouldn't allow drinking. So people would have to sneak away and drink. And by the end of the night, people would have to drive long distances down mountain roads while drunk to get away because they didn't want to see him to say goodbye. Or he would screen movies at the end of barbecues and people would leave during the movies. They'd sneak out and never come back. Sometimes they turn the lights on and nobody was there except for this Herbst guy. And there was one evangelical Christian couple that was in the movie industry that were the other couple. So it was him and one couple that were evangelicals that didn't drink, sitting in the theater being we had a party. People. What happened? Yeah.
Weird.
So,
well, that's it for my deep dive. I just one more time want to plug the book. So it's called The Magic of Orson Welles. That's by James Naramore. If you're interested in this film or Orson Welles, I highly recommend the book.
Better than the movie Citizen Kane, the best movie of all time.
Fair enough. I will turn it over to Denny for any remaining trivia.
So you had some...
Hey, TC, do you want to do the trivia bumper? Do the trivia bumper, TC. Come on.
Trivia.
That's Timmy.
Trivia. It's not the book corner anymore. It's trivia.
Okay. Not bad. That'll work as long as book corner always comes before trivia. I think it might.
Come on, Sean. Help us, Sean.
Yeah,
Help us.
Add a fat bass or something. I don't know.
Digitize that shit and turn it into its own beat.
So William Randolph Hearst used to have a slang word for vagina, and that was rosebud, and that's why they put that in this movie.
What?
Yeah.
No way. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's that's one of the hardest pieces of evidence that it was written about.
This is Hearst. This is about Hearst, yeah.
They built 110 different sets for this movie. A lot of sets. They used a lot of stock footage. All the animal farm stuff in the beginning was taken from different movies from RKO. A lot of it was just used in previous movies. During that picnic scene, there was the background with a jungle set that was projected and there were birds flying in the sky. That was from some other movie. They would just take other footage they had the rights to at RKO and reuse it in the middle of this movie to save money. Another very impressive thing we haven't touched on is this movie was a very low budget movie, and it, to its credit, I think this is one of the things I agree with, doesn't seem like a low budget movie, especially for the time.
It doesn't.
There's a lot of scale in it. It seems like there's a lot of people in it. But
700K or something like that, right?
Yeah, which is not much for a studio picture back then. But there are a lot of scale shots that trick you in ways that, again, Ebert pointed out, where it really does work. There's the scene where you're in the front of the curtain that comes up and you see the play and there's people running around and doing things, and then it pans up to the scaffolding and people are there. But then there's a shot later on where it's the exact same scene or whatever, same scenario. I don't know what you even call it. It's the same thing further on in the movie, but you're behind her when she's singing it and the curtain goes up. And all you see is the lights in the background. But you get a sense of scale that this is an entire packed
you're in
theater.
a theater.
Yeah. And you do. You really do.
Oh, yeah.
But you don't see anybody in there. And there's nobody there. And the lights aren't even that far away. They just put the lights in particular distances and, they scale it. So it's just this is how it would look.
And I think, and all of this is Orson. Orson loves this idea of magic, this idea of tricking people, of making it seem like something's there that's not there.
But the thing is, unlike special effects movies, and Ebert actually compared this to Star Wars. He's like, this is no different from Star Wars because this movie actually has more special effects shots than Star Wars did, which kind of blew my mind. If you're just going pure count, I think when we talked about Star Wars, it was 180 special effects shots or something, which is pretty high. And those shots were probably more expensive than these ones. But this movie had special effects shots all over the place. And they were all hidden now. That's the most confusing part. Is it worth it to trick somebody so effectively while
they don't know
money?
I don't know.
Is it worth it? It is if it's engaging. I think that's the big hurdle there, right?
That's the rub. If it gets you into it, then it's great.
Yeah. During the intro newsreel scene, they cut between real newsreel footage and stuff they filmed, and to get the stuff they filmed to look like the newsreel footage, they would take the film lengthwise and drag it across the studio floor back and forth until it matched the wear of that actual newsreel stuff. So there's just like a bunch of, all it is like vertical lines on that stuff, just by being passed around place to place, because that's what they used to do, I guess, with newsreels.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I like that sequence. I sort of like the idea of like they show the news on the march and then you see the news people like reacting to what they just saw and how they're like griping about it and like, it's not enough there. We need more. I like that.
That was a good 5 seconds. Let's add that to the 45 seconds of the intro.
Another good fraction of time.
Cool. Let's do another 30 minutes of bullshit. Cool. Great. Awesome.
Toland was the cinematographer. He was given a co-director credit, even though he was just a cinematographer, which is huge. Orson Welles credits him for most of what makes this movie good. And it sounds like even today, the visual stuff is what makes this movie good. So that's merited.
Yeah.
Deep focus is not new. Listening to people talk about this movie, they mention deep focus a lot and its utilization of deep focus, which is confusing because they don't say that it's like the first
for a Hollywood film to use it so extensively. I think was more the new part, at least.
Well, so there were 3 movies right before this that used deep focus. There was The Hunchback of Notre Dame, which was 39, and then there was Rebecca, which was 40, and then this was 41.
Right.
But Nosferatu used it in 1922. So I don't know. Everyone who talks about
that's fair. But was it in the same sense of like not only having deep focus, but having like multiple things happening within that shot? So like using
Rebecca
deep focus, but having like 3 different things happening within the scene and using deep focus to allow that to happen.
Should we watch Rebecca again, John?
Oh God! Or Nosferatu? Why isn't Nosferatu on our list?
Exactly, because it's pushed off the cliff with the horse that's
it's
running.
The horse, yeah, with the horse running. It's really gone down. Yeah, that's like so far over there. It's like that's horse running.
Yeah, but I mean that's so.
It's fair.
If you listen to commentary on this movie, you'll think that this movie created it because that's how they talk.
No. It's more about contrasting with current Hollywood trends, I guess. Not that it was the only one that did that, but it did it differently than a lot of the other Hollywood movies at the time. But that doesn't mean it was the innovator, right?
And all that defocus is, so lenses were getting better, they were saying, but 1922 was, 20 years before this, and they were able to do it then. It's a matter of combining lens choice, lens focus, and lighting. That's all it is, as far as I can tell from the commentaries and the stuff I've read. And it's a matter of like you zoom in on a small lens as much as you can to flatten the image, but then since it's flattening the image, you need more light in the background, so you have a gradient of light you need as you go further back. And they created a scale, so like the people in the foreground need way less lighting. This all makes a lot of sense, right? All a lens does is collect light. So if you're further away, you need more light to reflect off of something to get back to the lens. Science, am I right? But they would just have a gradient of like spotlights. And you could see a lot of the time in this movie, the people, if there was someone in the background, they would just have a fucking spotlight pointed at them.
Right. And there were like fucking shadows like crazy here.
Yeah.
Like you would really see some highlighted shadows.
And it was kind of like all that stuff that kind of started a lot of the noir type of stuff, the first noir movie ever was The Maltese Falcon, which was the same year as this, but this had the same kind of hard lighting stuff.
Yeah.
But that was just to get the deep focus stuff.
More interesting, far more interesting characters in that one for sure. Yeah.
And entertaining.
Yeah.
Yeah. TC, you'll like this one. The ceilings in this movie. Did you notice how all the camera shots were like really down low and people look tall and you could see the ceilings in a lot of the shots?
I did notice that.
I really thought, especially in the scenes in the newsrooms with Orson and his buddies, I thought they were particularly cool when you could see the ceilings like that.
So that the low shot, by the way, so all the sets were built feet off the ground, so the cameras are still very large back in 41. So they need to like build the sets up so they could have the cameras like below the floor a lot of the time for those low shots. But for some reason, no one can tell me why, they wanted to shoot the ceilings in these. So the ceilings were super low to make the characters look larger than life, and the camera angles were very low. And then also the ceilings were made out of fabric. And if you light fabric in a certain way and then make them taut, you can not only light the ceilings from above, which is what they did. So if you see these huge areas where there's no like practical use for lighting, they would hide lights above the ceilings and light the fabric below it. You could also hide microphones up there, which is what they did. So a lot of the audio they got for this movie was real audio they got by hiding microphones above the ceilings.
Right.
Yeah. Which is kind of sweet.
Yeah.
And according to, let's see, quoting from the book here, the Citizen Kane sets have ceilings because we wanted reality and we felt it would be easier to believe a room was a room if its ceiling could be seen.
There's the reason. Okay. There's a lot of shots where they construct furniture in front of or behind the camera as they're moving the camera around. John, did you read about that at all?
No.
So there's the first shot Ebert pointed out was when they were in Kane's parents' house when he was a kid, and the camera was panning back as they were walking away from the window, the one you talked about where he's doing stuff in the background.
Yeah, right.
The camera pans back.
Arguably the most famous shot in the film.
Is it really?
Yeah, at least like according to the book again, the most like deconstructed.
And they didn't talk about the table in that.
Yeah. No, I didn't hear them talk about the table.
So when they're zooming back, you're backing up as the camera. You're watching all these three adults walk towards the other room,
right?
As they're moving backwards. There's a table that comes into focus as comes into view as you're backing up. And if you look in the bottom left, there's a top hat on the table and it wiggles because they constructed a lot of half pieces of furniture that could be shoved together and create a piece of furniture. And that was one of them. And you can see when they slam the table together during that thing that the hat's still wiggling from the hit.
Oh, the creation of it.
Yeah.
Huh?
So they do that a lot. So the scene, another one is when they're going from the rooftop to where his second wife is now like singing, like her failed bar type of thing where she like gives her sob story. You kind of fly through the sign of the hotel.
Well, why are they constructing the furniture? I'm confused. Like what's the point of that?
To make you feel like the camera's doing impossible things. It's like you can't move a camera through a table.
I see. So like the table is like split, and so
split,
they like
and you move the camera
camera
through it, and
then they
snap
bring
it
it
together before it comes into frame. So like the opposite thing happens with the sign above the second wife's thing. So there's that one shot where it kind of pans through the sign and then goes down to the sunroof.
Mm-hmm.
That sign it splits. So it like there's a part of the sign where the camera it knows it's going to get all the stuff of the signs outside.
Back to your point, it's done so well you don't think about it.
You don't
notice
right?
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
And that's cool for him because he's tabulating all his cool tricks. But me, I'm just sitting there like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And there's always little things you can look at. Like when you're zooming into that sign, you can see that it's split in half. The construction is half and half. You can see the little metal pieces keeping it together in the center, but you can't see it move. And just like the hat thing, you can see the hat just wiggle. Like that's it. There's like little tells that there are tricks being made, but like if you're watching it, you will not notice it at all.
And if you don't care, definitely not.
And you won't care.
Yeah, right.
One of the other special effects in this movie is that the matte paintings are just seamlessly integrated into almost every single shot in this movie. Like anything inside of his house in Xanadu, like the top half of the screen is just a matte painting.
And that's spectacularly done. I mean,
it looks amazing.
You don't notice that at all.
You don't.
Actually. Yeah.
And
Once again, here we
cheaper. It was cheaper to do that back then, which
I'm sure it was. Rather than location.
They had I thought they had like Disney animators that were working on that. So like RKO, part of like the different like studios there, RKO was more about the creative types, and they had Disney was part of RKO at the time. So I think they had some like real talented like animators and drawers there. The drawers. Artists.
John's smart. He read a book, everyone, just to remind you. He read a book.
The drawers there.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Welles injured himself twice during the filming of this movie. He once chipped a bone in his ankle while there was that scene he's chasing his opponent, Gillies? Was that his name? I don't know.
Giles.
He's a political opponent. He was chasing down the stairs after he threatened him. There was a take they didn't put in the movie where he
Gonna
chipped...
get a sing.
Yeah, that guy.
He's yelling at him. Yeah.
Yeah. He chipped his ankle and was... they actually had to do a switch of what they were going to shoot. They went to that old guy in the wheelchair and did that scene just like the next day because they were planning on shooting Welles for a while, but he was out for a week. And then he had a brace on his leg for a lot of the rest of the movie. And then also when he was that old guy and smashing the apartment or the bedroom, he had contact lenses in that made his eyes look cloudy, so he couldn't see anything. And he was just waving his arms around, smashing shit. And he cut his hand. And you can see, because that entire thing was one take. That was one take. And it was multiple cameras. And that's all just one take. That's pretty impressive, right? But you can see when he finally gets to the snow globe.
It actually makes sense a little more that they couldn't see because he's kind of zombie-like.
He
there
was.
Going,
I can't see shit. I just got to smash. When he finally reaches the snow globe, you can see his left hand is in the frame right as it cuts to that shot, but then he moves it behind his back because he knows he fucked it up and he doesn't want to ruin the shot by having blood in the shot because you can't have real blood in the shot.
Wow.
And you can see him hiding it as he walks away too because he knows where the cameras are. So that's pretty professional of him.
Oh, I mean, this guy has been acting a lot.
Yeah.
So he already on theater and whatnot. So he's pretty well seasoned.
There were a lot of trick shots where they would have somebody in the foreground in reality, a rear projection in the background, and then they would transition to another shot like that by you fade out the background, you fade out the foreground, you fade in the background of the other one, and then you fade in the foreground. And it's like a 4-step process that all it requires is one fade while you're filming and then one fade during editing. And it just... Did you guys notice that at all?
No.
There was just a lot of cool fades, I guess. Again, who cares? I feel so, I don't know. There's
so much cool stuff that nobody
innovative.
saw.
Yeah, they're being innovative in a lot of ways that just don't come across when you're watching it at all.
Yeah.
And I felt somewhat justified, like now you think we'd be able to appreciate this, or at least I would. But people back then didn't like it either. They weren't blown away by it. It wasn't like 2001 or anything where...
No, well, no, like not Star Wars or whatever, where you're just like, whoa, look at that.
It was just done to do it. It wasn't done because it did something.
And it was
to
also
the story.
done so seamlessly that you didn't notice.
Right, because nothing in the story was happening. So
right.
It wasn't
in outer space,
no intent.
so you didn't know. Yeah.
So William Randolph Hearst tried to sabotage the production, and he did so successfully. He threatened the lawsuits to RKO. He accused Welles of being a communist. He convinced Radio City Music Hall to not preview the movie, which is where it was supposed to be premiered. And he also threatened Orson Welles that he was, wherever he was going to stay in a hotel, he was going to find out where he was. He was going to hide a naked lady in his hotel room and have a cameraman nearby and then have her pop out, get all over him and take a picture the pictures. Of it.
Yeah.
So he was he had to switch hotel rooms while he toured for this movie. Yeah.
So he was doing the real Citizen Kane stuff.
Makes the movie better? No.
Yeah.
Welles drank 30 to 40 cups of coffee a day towards the beginning of the shoot.
Whoa.
Yep. He didn't eat some days. And then every once in a while, every third day.
Did he have sugar or milk with his coffee? I mean, geez.
They didn't specify. Towards the end of the shoot, or towards the not beginning, he had to switch to tea. But he was looking very sickly towards the beginning. He was getting very tired. So he shot for 18 hours a day. He spent the first 4 hours in a lot of the movie, first 4 hours in makeup, putting whatever stage of his life he was on. But then while he was doing that, he would be active on talking about how they would shoot for the day and what they would shoot and all the stuff with everyone else on the set. And then he'd get up and they would go through rehearsals and then they go through the filming. He was there for the entire thing.
This dude worked hard.
Yes. You can't knock him for that at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds like it.
Yeah. So he had caffeine poisoning and he got sick off of that.
Really?
30 to 40. I mean, that sounds like an impossible number.
Yeah, it does. I have 3 and I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's an exaggeration, but that's what they said. So I don't know. He also didn't eat very much. He wouldn't eat for days. And then they said he would have 3 steaks at once with a lot of sides.
It's just starving.
He's what is that? Like a binge eater? Is that like a thing?
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah.
That's not healthy.
No. He got big towards the end there. He was a big guy.
He did.
Big guy.
Yeah, if you like this kind of stuff, watch Mank. That's what the movie's about.
Who is it? A documentary? A movie? What is it?
It's a movie. It's a David Fincher. It came out this year.
Interesting.
You didn't hear about this one?
No.
It's like it might be the front runner for. Or it's not gonna. Nomadland's gonna win. I mean, this is gonna come out after the Oscars, but by all accounts, Nomadland is gonna win. But Mank has 10 nominations. It was a David Fincher movie. It has Gary Oldman as Mankiewicz.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And who plays Orson Welles?
This guy I'd never seen before, but he looks a lot like Orson Welles. He's got the chin and everything. Kind of a younger guy. But not worth watching, I wouldn't say.
All right.
A lot of the shots you might think are deep focus are not deep focus. They are combined shots in an optical printer. One example is when he was redoing the script and his buddy, good actor in the movie, was coming from behind that fell asleep drunk in his typewriter. On the left side of the screen, you got Orson Welles facing the camera, typing away, finishing the bad review of his wife.
Yeah.
And then you have the guy who started writing it coming from the right-hand side really far away.
Right.
You might think because of all the deep focus shots that's a deep focus shot, but it's not. It's an optical printed shot where they shot them at 2 separate times and they overlaid them.
Damn.
Oh, lucky for me, I didn't notice.
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
There's also a lot of shots like that. So even if you think you learned that the tricks of the deep focus are there, there's more tricks to be learned, TC.
That's right.
It's an endless,
cool.
endless
Tricks upon tricks.
Aren't you glad this is a 2-hour episode, TC?
If only someone could trick it into being good.
Are we going to 2-part this?
And we're going to 2-part this for sure.
Are you going to have to?
All right.
Ebert compared this movie to Birth of a Nation.
Okay.
What are your
That's
thoughts on
probably
that?
reasonable. We're never going to watch that one.
Yeah.
But the idea is something that's hugely influential in the craft of filmmaking. And Birth of a Nation certainly was. So
what he said is that so Birth of a Nation was a landmark in the silent film era, and this was the first landmark film in the sound film era, where you take all the combined techniques and then you set the groundwork for every single movie that's going to come out afterwards.
Yeah.
So that's what Ebert said, and can't disagree. I don't know. Maybe you could disagree. I don't know. We haven't watched enough movies, I don't think. I'm not sure anyone has. You have to watch a lot of movies from like the late 30s.
Right. You have 30s. To be like really entrenched in that to understand how this was a sea change, if it was. But certainly it's pretty popular opinion that this film was like heralded a different way of making films.
But it wasn't done that way until the 60s, which is, it makes me think that maybe it's just a bunch of bandwagoners, you know? Seriously.
Right.
It does.
Well, yeah.
Yep. Agreed.
But if all those directors after the 60s made movies because of this movie, even though they were like 20 years too late.
I don't think it's true. I just don't think it's true. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I think they were just making movies because movies were becoming popular and people just were good at it too. And they have to say this is good because everyone else does. And if you're not going to be in the circle, if you don't say it's good, but fuck off.
Got to be in the circle, TC.
I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't buy it.
The score was made by Bernard Herrmann, he did a lot of Hitchcock movies, and he also did the score for Taxi Driver. He was his last
really?
Score. Yeah.
I'll be damned.
Yep, same guy.
The score seemed fine. I wasn't annoyed by it, which is for an old film like this. That's about the most I could say for a score.
It's very synced up to what was going on screen. Quote from Ebert: "Who cares? You don't ask questions consistently."
Right.
Another quote. You can't get hung up on details like that.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
He explained away a lot of the dumb plot points in this movie just by saying, "Who cares?" But
who cares?
That wouldn't fly in other movies, Ebert. I care.
Yeah, right. People wasting their time watching it, do.
Let's see, and that's all I got, guys.
Oh,
all right.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who would have thought this would have turned into a 2-parter, huh?
Fucked if I know the movie's long enough.
Sorry, TC.
I am excited that every movie from here on out, I am not dreading. We've reached the point.
We've reached the tipping point.
Yes, I think
so.
All
right.
Well, what do we got next?
That's cool. What's next?
Wait. First of all, the big question.
Top 250 TC.
No. Never.
I'm going to go yes.
Years.
I'm going yes.
Not in a million fucking years. You could never put that in a top list.
This one, can I abstain from voting on this one?
No, because you got to join me in going against the grain with Hollywood.
Danny.
It's a no.
Yes or
it's
no.
a total no.
I'll go
yes or no, Danny.
Personal
yes
preference?
Or no.
Personal preference? No.
Yes or no, Danny?
And that's all that matters because
no.
we're doing a podcast about personal preferences. It's a top 250 list that we like. Fuck that. It's no.
All right,
That's
so
fair.
I think on paper I probably should say yes, but I can't really directly see a line between what this movie did and the movies that I like in a way that this one created a lot of this. So I'm going to go no.
I will stand up against the machine and I will say this movie is garbage.
Well, I appreciate both of I appreciate your bravery, TC, and
I don't give a fuck.
Not so much your like ambivalent or your like little like wishy-washy, Denny.
I don't know, man.
The wishy-washy.
The only thing I'm wishy-washy about is that, everyone that's in the industry says yes. So I'm not in the industry, so what do I know?
Yeah.
Fuck them.
TC's in the industry.
That's right. And I say fuck
That's right.
I might not be in the industry for much longer.
That's right. That's true.
I'm going no. All
right.
Most overrated movie of all time. I'll say that.
Oh my God. Right. I don't know. That's horrible. I wouldn't say that at all.
What else? This movie is ranked number 1 across the board.
Vertigo is overrated. Vertigo is now ranked above this one, and Vertigo
only on
is
one
overrated.
list. This one is rated number 1 on a lot more lists. And has been for a way longer period of time.
Right.
Wow.
I think there's like if you separate like and again, it's still questionable that you separate influence from enjoyment, and then that's a different list.
It's a whole different idea. It's a whole different.
But sometimes
ball
it's
game.
not.
Yeah.
Good movies, it's not. Movies that are still
I know,
relevant,
not all the time, but there are some where it's like the influence that they had as far as like the entertainment value of watching them now, there's a difference. But yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's fair. That's a fair point.
Agreed. Okay, so next week, guys, we're going back to 2007.
What do we got?
We got Hot Fuzz.
All right, let's do Hot Fuzz.
Yeah. That's going to be fun.
We're Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg.
This one's available for streaming on HBO Max too. So
nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
There are 5 commentary tracks on this movie.
No way.
Are there commentaries by zombies?
I don't know.
Because if there are, you need to watch it this time.
In this movie.
But it might be a funny little thing they did. You never know.
It goes horror at the end.
There were 4 commentaries.
So there were 4 commentaries on the. So they wanted to outdo what they talked about, because I think they recorded them all like in the same period of time. They wanted to outdo the Lord of the Rings commentaries. There are 5 commentaries on each one of the extended editions of Lord of the Rings. So they wanted to like compete with that.
Well, of course, because you got to be an epic. This is what you got to do.
It's a trilogy. It's an epic trilogy that'll last for 100 years. Is what this is.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Well, yes.
So for Shaun of the Dead, there was 4 commentary tracks. This one has 5, and The World's End has 3. So I'll do my best.
They just gave up at that point.
And hey, John and TC, the commentary tracks are fun. If you guys want to split these up, we can talk about that.
I might try.
I'd have to
might try.
Buy something to see the commentary.
How do you do that?
The problem.
They're cheap. They come in a 3-pack.
You just buy them online.
Yeah, you buy them on Amazon. They come in a 3-pack.
Oh, why do you need 3? Oh, because it's the extra commentaries per.
So it's all 3 movies. Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz,
all 3 movies.
Yeah,
got it.
So let's talk about that.
I might be down for that.
We can try to coordinate that.
I might be down for that.
Yeah,
for that.
And I'd give you guys dibs on like the good ones. You get the first 2. The Simon Pegg ones.
I just buy it outright.
My job is to go find something to read. I'm still sticking to that.
Okay,
I'm not the commentary guy.
All right, sweet. Hey, double episode. Anything? Last words there, Timmy, Citizen Kane.
Yeah, skip this one. You're better off watching Larry Arabia, because at least someone spackles does it there. Yeah, Citizen Kane.